What is going on, Knicks Nation? Welcome back to Knicks Media. This is Richie, joined by a great friend of mine, Mr. Tyler from Wardy NYM. And we're
How
going to
you
be
doing?
breaking down the New York Knicks. 2 games in a row, they get a W, back-to-back home games. But more importantly, there's some lot of rumors that we got to figure out and organize in our heads. Is Quentin Grimes on his way out? Are the Knicks about to make a trade? We're going to be breaking that all down right here. So, Tyler, always a pleasure to have you on Knicks Media. How you doing today, my man?
I'm doing fantastic, my man. I'm really excited to get into this one. We see the Knicks, of course, be on a heater over the past 24 hours. Not the prettiest games, but they got the job done, needed what they needed to do, and now they're only 2.5 back of third in the East. I mean, exciting times if you're a Knicks fan right now for sure, but we know that this team, while they are most certainly a true contender now looking in the East, they definitely could still add a little bit more oomph to their offense. And we know that is going to be a bulk of the discussion today as we get into all the latest trade rumors. So to everyone first chiming in live on a replay, make sure to smash that like and subscribe button for your boy here, Richie at Knicks Media. Make sure to check me out if you are in fact a Mets fan. Check me out, Wardy NYM. And if you're a Knicks fan, I do a weekly Knicks and Mets podcast. So you guys can check me out there too. Greatly appreciate it. But let's dive into this one, brother. We got plenty to talk about.
We got plenty to talk about indeed. And don't forget to hit that like button, folks. Subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to check out Tyler, of course, your number one related news to the New York Mets. Now, let's start off with just the last 2 games. They got a big win last night. I mean, I don't want to say big win, but we need to win these games. And they're big for the whole reason, Tyler.
Big.
Exactly. And they're on a big homestead right now. They're on, and they have a big opportunity to kind of stack up wins because you look at the Eastern Conference right now in terms of the standings, it is all joined up together. And the Knicks are on a very pivotal home stretch, right? They are going to be home for it feels like 12 of the next 15 games, and I'm going to include the Brooklyn Nets game in Brooklyn, by the way, next week. And then they have a big game tomorrow night, a game I'm actually going to be in attendance for, RJ and Quickly coming back home to the Garden. So I want to start off with that. You know, we saw what this Knicks team looks like without Jalen Brunson, and it was a little lackluster. And I think it kind of showed us Knicks fans and the Knicks in general that, yeah, we definitely need another primary ball handler. As great as Deuce McBride was in those games, career high 19 on Saturday, and then he matched it with a career high with 20 on Monday, especially in that Orlando Magic game, we were lacking a true closer. Julius Randle wasn't able to do it without Jalen Brunson. We did not have anybody to get it done, and that's why it seems like the Knicks are going to be aggressive to get some bench help in the trade market. But other than that, Jalen Brunson came back after his calf injury, 30 points Wednesday, 40 points last night, 41, 8 and 8 to be exact. The Knicks have a dynamic duo. And let me just remind everybody, please vote. We need Brunson and Randle representing the New York Knicks in the All-Star game.
This is the only time we're being political, damn it. Please vote right now. We need
vote
Brunson
right now.
We need Randle.
How did you not vote yet?
Never.
At least get them both in there, man. If they're not All-Stars, I don't know what we're going to do about it. But Tyler, what was your overall thoughts of last night's game and the game before that? Back-to-back home victories against opponents the Knicks have to beat up against in the Rockets and the Wizards.
Oh my God, these past 2 games have reeked of trap games. I understand that the Rockets are a pretty solid team this year, all things considered. They've been really hovering around 500 for a little bit now, and they have talent on that squad for sure, especially with their young stud of a center, the type of year he's been having as well. I knew that that would be an interesting matchup for the Knicks, and thankfully they legged it out, fairly comfortably. Last night, again, looked like a Knicks team a little bit that lost the legs a little bit, playing back-to-back, and that reeked of trap game more than anything else. So I'm just grateful that Brunson and the Knicks were able to pull it out. Dante DiVincenzo doing Dante things with roughly 20 points yesterday too. I can't say enough good things about him. We got to talk about Dante DiVincenzo a little bit. Josh Hart is out of the lineup, so you're thinking, oh, all eyes on Quentin Grimes. What does Quentin Grimes do? Absolutely fucking nothing over the 19-minute span.
Not helping the trade value, Quentin.
Horrendous. Grimes, the most heartbreaking aspect about Grimey is mainly because I had such high hopes for him heading into the season. We're halfway through the year already. I know he hasn't been utilized properly every time, but at the same time, he hasn't played enough consistently to warrant the minutes for the most part either. He's had some nice stretches of brilliance prior to this game, and since the OG trade, but really, we know that he's frustrated. And unfortunately, it looks like he's the last domino to fall and that young core group of all these young Knicks between himself, IQ, RJ, there's one more I'm blanking on. Obi. Yeah, I mean, it sucks to see all these guys go, but this was kind of the Knicks' philosophy the entire time.
It is wild.
I think we're just a little shell shocked given the fact that it's all of them are likely going to be dealt
100%.
versus it just being even half. It's all these young studs that we've grown the past couple of years that have become valuable assets to many NBA rosters that would ask for them. Now could be find themselves on the way out. But you know what? We cannot be in the business for focusing too much on emotions, because you want to know why?
Yeah.
These team-friendly Knicks teams have gotten us absolutely nowhere. I don't care what you have to do. Make the proper moves. That way you can have success this season while also not hurting your long-term vision. The Knicks are doing that right now, which is very exciting. But again, my final takeaway from these past two games is they were a little bit trap games, didn't love them, and they further proved to me how much Brunson means to Randle. Far more than what Randle, you could argue, means to Brunson. They definitely feed off of each other very well. But you saw it yourself, against the Magic, right? We've seen it in stretches when Brunson is not in this lineup and Randle kind of feels a need that he needs to be more of the driver instead of offense, especially with RJ gone. It's a recipe for disaster. It just isn't going to work. They collapsed so bad in that fourth quarter against the Magic. I don't even want to think about that game anymore. I just want to focus on what's ahead, and that's what we're doing.
That was a big game.
But
that was a big loss.
Big loss. Huge loss. A game they absolutely should have had.
They lost now 2 times to the Magic, so the Knicks have to beat the Magic the next 2 times in order to get a tiebreaker because they're going to be neck and neck at the conference.
Even when the Magic were absolutely cooked over the past couple of years, they're still having some baller games against the Knicks for no damn reason. Like, it's making me think of when they had Ross.
Oh God, don't bring that guy up. The Knicks killer, right?
Things like a mofo, but it's held true. So that's kind of my biggest takeaway for the Knicks right now. And final thing I'll add, and I want to hear your thoughts on this because I mentioned it last week. And what has changed? Absolutely nothing. What did I say once we got OG? Do not drill his ass in the ground. What has Tom Thibodeau done the past 24 hours? Play him roughly 90 minutes. The guy
maybe that's why we need another trade or something, because this lineup seems front loaded.
It's very front loaded. I'm sorry, but OG on the first half of the back-to-back played 45 minutes, 17 points. Let's be realistic. We need another facilitator of this offense for certain. Love OG, love everything he does. But if we keep playing him the way this way, and people are like, oh, don't worry because of his time with Nick Nurse. But he was also multiple years younger when he was with Nick Nurse, right? So this is an OG that's in the peak of his prime right now. If we drill him out there 40-plus minutes every single night, he is going to get washed up far sooner, more than likely, than we would like him to be. He's going to be down. He's not going to be able to give his 100% to the way that we're accustomed to seeing. So that's my only true criticism out of all this. Just dial it back a little bit. Especially the only thing, Wizards, you should be better than this. You shouldn't have to play him 45 minutes against the 7-30 or something Wizards. Stop it.
The sad thing is they might have had to in order to win the game.
I know.
That's how bad the bench is. And you also have to remember, Tyler, Josh Hart was out. So without Josh Hart, OG's going to have to play more minutes.
That's true.
Not even just OG. Hartenstein played the whole second half because Precious Achua sucks. I'm sorry to tell you guys that. I mean, I'm not impressed with Precious.
Give me something.
Yeah, right? I mean, listen, I think that, you bring up a good point. OG's playing too many minutes, but the Knicks are front-loaded. Without Josh Hart coming off the bench, you need defense. And without OG, without Josh Hart and OG on the floor, I don't really like the Knicks on the defensive end. You like Grimes on defense, you like Deuce on defense, but, you need that defensive arsenal, and that's what they bring. And I feel like, the next move that the Knicks are going to make is going to be somebody to kind of take off the pressure of OG. We don't want OG to be playing these many minutes. It's what Tom Thibodeau is known for. Even Hartenstein's playing ridiculous amount of minutes. Everybody's playing too many minutes of the starters, and that's simply because the Knicks bench is literally depleted right now. We had Evan Fournier play 5 minutes and brick every shot he put up there. I'm hopeful that he could finally get traded out of here, right? But I want to talk about
so much more with Fournier if he wasn't on a $19 million contract this year just to ride the bench.
Sitting there, he's sitting there just getting paid to do absolutely nothing. Fournier, good job. Congratulations, my man. Guys, don't forget to hit the like button on your way into the show, folks. This is Knicks Media, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're excited to have you guys here. Now, I do want to highlight an article that came out from the great Ian Begley this morning, and I think that this is something that Knicks fans need to wrap their heads around because it seems like it's happening. Quentin Grimes, seems to be drawing interest across the league. Now, Tyler said at the top of the show, right? We have all these emotions attached to our kids. Started with Obi, sucked to see him go. Then RJ quickly came out of nowhere, and now Grimes seems to be the last guy to be shipped away. Now, it's not guaranteed to be happening, but we also saw reports that Quentin Grimes himself has grown to be frustrated. So it seems like, according to SNY's Ian Begley, the Hawks, Grizzlies, Jazz, and Rockets are the 4 teams who are interested in Quentin Grimes. And remember, Grimes lost his starting job to Dante DiVincenzo earlier this season. And then later on the article, it says some people with the Knicks see Bruce Brown as a trade target after he was traded from Indiana to Toronto for the Siakam deal. Various reports have linked the Knicks to Malcolm Brogdon and Charlotte's Terry Rozier. And there's other, they don't say his name in this, but I've heard Alec Burks' name be thrown around, which is very interesting to see him potentially reunite with Tom
Burks has
Thibodeau.
low-key played pretty well his past like 10 games at least. I
know, and I'm like, and I said this on my last video, and some Knicks fans like did not agree with me, but I'm like, Alec Burks is kind of exactly what the Knicks need right now off the bench.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Richie, because a part of me wants him because he knows New York very well. He knows what it's like.
We're not giving up Grimes for him. I'll say that.
No, exactly. You got to make sure you don't do some bullshit like that. Same thing with Bruce Brown. If we trade Quentin Grimes and Bruce Brown deal, I don't know if I'm going to want to continue to watch the Knicks this year.
You only trade Grimes for like a star. That's their star piece. You don't trade Grimes for another bench asset. Grimes is a piece of a bigger deal. He's literally the only piece left on this team, by the way, that has value, trade value. Deuce can't get traded, and no one else is getting traded.
40% shooter, dude. Like that's the biggest thing when it comes to Grimes. We all know how elite of a 3-point shooter he can be. It's just kind of about rounding out everything else. We also know that he can defend his own without a problem either. So it's really just about finding that consistency, and you have to wonder how much of his lack of consistent production this year has been because of a lack of confidence. It certainly seems that way. I mean, he literally was going brick for brick. You will not find anyone that has a smoother shot to barely touch the rim at times than Quentin Grimes. Like, his shot's there. We all know it's there. We saw it in spades last year. Apparently, there's rumblings that this, I don't even want to call it animosity, but there's a disconnect kind of between Thibodeau and Quentin, and this may go back reportedly to last year's playoff run, which I don't know how much I buy in. Are you telling me that Tibbs really gave him a hard time for having a cooked shoulder? Like, it's possible. I don't know. Tibbs loves to run guys on the ground. And speaking of Tibbs running guys on the ground, this gets to my point about Alec Burks. We know how much Tibbs loved Burks.
Loved Burks. Too much.
My point. That's my problem. I'm concerned that if we bring Alec Burks back, he's going to be literally everywhere all the time. When he's playing way too much.
I'm not going to lie. Burks, when he was on the Knicks,
that he was with the Pistons.
He was the most clutch player we had on those teams, Burks. Yeah. And like, I feel like the Knicks do need someone to take. And listen, if it could take like a 2nd-round pick or something, or if it's cheap and the Pistons want to ship off Burks back to New York, I'd welcome him with open arms because I genuinely think he is exactly what the Knicks are missing right now. A playmaker off the bench that can play defense, get into the passing lanes, that can be clutch, take the ball out of Brunson's hands if he needs. So I'm not going to sit here and pound the table for Burks, but I don't know. When I heard that idea, I was like, okay. But there's other guys out there like Malcolm Brogdon, which I think will be a little more expensive in terms of a trade for the New York Knicks. I think Brogdon will be a piece that would definitely add to the bench unit, replace that Emmanuel Quickley role, as well as Terry Rozier, who's kind of like a hot and cold type of player. He's a microwave-style guy that can just be lights out off the bench, or it could be ice cold. But I do feel like, one player I do want to highlight who's on the Knicks right now is definitely Deuce McBride. I think Deuce McBride has developed into somebody where I have a lot of confidence in. He has gotten the opportunity. The Knicks signed him to a contract extension immediately after they made the trade to kind of solidify him as, you're not going anywhere. You're the next man up. When we traded IQ, the biggest reason why we were comfortable trading Emmanuel Quickley from the Knicks' perspective was Deuce was ready. Deuce was not in the rotation all year long. He did not play unless there was an injury or something. And when the Knicks got rid of Emmanuel Quickley and RJ, they said this is Deuce's time. They gave him that contract extension. It makes him not trade eligible, by the way. So he's not allowed to be traded this year at the deadline, which tells you what the Knicks feel of him. He had his career high on 19, then a career high 20 when he started in replacement of Jalen Brunson. And my biggest takeaway from Deuce McBride is his three-point shooting. I mean, his defense is great. That's why the Knicks drafted him. That's why Tom Thibodeau loves him. He just takes you up full court. He presses you. He's a pest in the defense. He gets into the passing lanes. But his offense, he's got confidence. He's not just hitting these catch-and-shoot threes. He's hitting him in rhythm. He's hitting him with people in his face. He's hitting him when people are going underneath screens. He's becoming an absolute weapon where if you give him space, he will knock it down. To quote the great Chris Smoove, if you sag off, your swag's off. That's what Deuce McBride's doing right now. So shout out to Deuce. I've been very impressed with him because he's that next guy that I'm going to fall in love with just for him to get traded eventually and be upset.
He's going to get traded this summer. Like it's going to happen.
100%.
My final thoughts about Deuce McBride here are the following. I love him. I'm so happy to see the success he's been having. For him to step up with JB being out the way he did to basically put up back-to-back 20-point nights with elite effectiveness from the three. I mean, how can he not be happy about that? Then you see the defense too. What is one of the biggest gripes currently in Emmanuel Quickley's game? It's the consistency with the defense. We all know he can chuck it. We all know he's an elite shooter. We're all going to miss Emmanuel Quickley. We all know the speed is absolutely absurd with him too. But Deuce McBride feels more like a Tom Thibodeau type player, for one. And two, depending on what the Knicks do via trade, if they do something that maybe is either a little underwhelming to some fans or whatever it may be, keeping Deuce in this mix, I think, is very pivotal, not only for his projection with the Knicks, but ultimately just his confidence. Like you can see once he was given that role, like he just knew right away how to step up. Like didn't even bat an eye. He's like, I'm going in there. I'm doing exactly what I've been needing to do. So I really feel that Deuce McBride is starting to establish himself as the next Emmanuel Quickley of the New York Knicks. Of course, he's not going to have the same electric offense on a night-to-night consistent basis, but I think his overall game is going to factor in so perfectly with the Knicks and what they're currently building right now under Thibodeau, where, yes, even though that you might get, say, 15 with McBride off the bench versus, say, getting 20 with IQ, you're also getting better defense in the process with his transition game. So those are things I look at Deuce McBride, and that's why I am too looking forward to seeing kind of what is next for him now with this current Knicks regime.
Yeah, I think Deuce McBride's development has been a joy to watch because he's, again, that next man up. And I feel like, we're upset with trading our own draft picks, but we also have to realize it takes a lot for our coaching staff and the resources they put in to develop them into the good enough players that other teams want these players and they actually have valuable, ammunition to trade. And I think that's a credit to not only Tom Thibodeau, but the entire coaching staff, Johnny Bryant. I don't know if you read Emmanuel Quickley's Player Tribune article.
I did. Fantastic article.
I was sobbing during it. I'm just kidding. But
I got a little. I'm not even gonna lie.
Me too.
There was water that built up under the island.
Johnny Bryant is the first guy that comes. Like Johnny Bryant is a absolute gem that the Knicks have, and like he is the players' coach. Thibodeau is the opposite of a players' coach, right? Which is why you need to have Johnny Bryant right next to him to be that players' coach, where the players can build a relationship with. Where Tom Thibodeau is that rah-rah, like I say this and you do it, and like you need that type of style. I happen to like Tom Thibodeau's style from just a overall way he handles his players, his timeouts. He's like, he gets pissed, and like you need to have discipline. You need to like call a timeout, and you're like the players are like scared to look at coach. It's like, coach is
Johnny's the one though to kind of pull them aside and be like, he's fuming right now. It's like,
it's a great dynamic. I feel like
your dad's pissed off at you, but your mom's there to be like, it's okay. Like
it's a good cop, bad cop.
This is the issue. Go to him, tell him what you did wrong, and then go fix it. That's exactly what Johnny Bryant
I think they got a great dynamic, honestly, in the coaching. And then, of course, Brunson's father on the coaching staff. I mean, Yamamoto. The Knicks just have a stellar coaching staff, and they've done a great job developing these young players. Not only that, but they've done a great job of bringing in the veterans that fit in with the Tom Thibodeau system. First, it was Jalen Brunson. Then you go get Josh Hart. Now you get Dante DiVincenzo in here. And then the next piece is Mikal Bridges. Just kidding. But I do feel like...
Kidding. Bring his ass here.
Brooklyn's not getting a rhythm. That's the thing. I mean, Brooklyn has been offered the world, the whole universe for him, and Brooklyn's saying no. So I don't think Brooklyn wants to trade him.
I don't think they're going to properly build around him. Or I think his value, I think, is going to continue to, by increments, start to go down because he has not been to a T the same player he was during his time with the Suns. People
Yeah, I
claim,
know.
oh, Mikal Bridges, like don't get me wrong, I would love him on the Knicks because I think in part it's his fit right now. He's the guy in Brooklyn. He wasn't the guy when he was with the Suns. You know what I mean? So you could see
Yeah.
the difference it's had on his night-to-night performance. Just imagine Mikal Bridges
Oh my
in this
gosh.
lineup.
That's
I mean,
championship. That's
that
2
is
chips they got in
championship
Nova.
caliber right there. If
And
you
like
could do
speaking
that.
of championship caliber, like I just feel like I don't know about you or some Knicks fans, we better not start taking for granted the greatness of Jalen Brunson because I'm starting to just get used to it, and I don't want to get used
Right.
to it.
Yes,
I
you're
want to
100% right.
I want to keep being in awe. Like what he did last night. Like he did not allow these Wizards to come back and win that game. Where the Wizards were starting to come back, and the
It's like,
Wizards
nope.
had every reason to come back and like steal that. Like the old Knicks, the cardiac Knicks we used to call them, would have lost that game last night. But now we have Jalen Brunson. He's not going to allow that to happen. He's going to put the team on his back. He's going to size people up in the clutch. He's going to get an N1. He's going to flex on him in the crowd. He's going to hit a step back mid-range. He's going to hit a contested three. And like the fact that what he's doing, like the numbers, Tyler, are ridiculous. Like I've been waiting my entire life for a point guard for the New York Knicks to put up the numbers that he's doing, to be a winner as well.
1,000% spoiled.
And they're not empty stats, right? It's not like he just like these are winning numbers. I mean, look at his numbers this season. 36.2 points per game. Ridiculous. 47.2% from the field, 42.6% from 3. And averaging a even steal per game. Like we thought Brunson was great last year. He just took another step, folks. We saw a little preview of it in the playoffs last year, but Jalen Brunson is an absolute star. And I don't want Knicks fans to start taking it for granted because don't forget that graphic. Don't forget that stat. It was like 14 straight seasons. The New York Knicks had a different starting point guard every year. We never had a consistent starter at point guard for a back-to-back season. Brunson has done that and then some. He is exceeding everyone's expectations, and his contract is descending, by the way. He's getting paid less this year than he did last year. He's going to get paid less next year and the year after that. So what an absolute stud and a star and a superstar that man Jalen Brunson is. All-star, that guy.
I can't even believe what it must be like to truly be in your shoes as a Jets and a Knicks fan, having this door of a new quarterback and a new guard every single year. That's pretty much what you've went through in a large part with your young fandom for both these teams. Thankfully, the Knicks are finally putting a stop to this by having JB. Hopefully, the Jets have something for your case and Aaron Rodgers next season. But when talking about Jalen Brunson and his brilliance, Richie, you didn't even mention, in my opinion, one of the biggest aspects of his game. What do you think that is?
Brunson?
That you didn't mention. There's an aspect to Brunson's game that's huge.
I mean, there's so many aspects to his game that I love. I mean, he leads the NBA in giving up his body of offensive fouls, charges.
There you go. Ding, 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 ding. You nailed it.
All right.
Exactly.
Well, there it is.
He's so good.
And he sacrifices his body too much for my liking, honestly, where I'm like worried about his health.
He's one big injury away from completely cooking this team. So, like, yes, you have to worry about those things and knocking on wood, of course. But what I love so much about Brunson's ability to drive the paint and get these fouls is that he's not just flopping like a fish. He's not Embiid out here, right? He's not Harden where, it's always going to happen. Like, he is really getting beat up a lot of the times when he's in there, and it's warranted. Of course, there are times where there are little softer calls that go his way, but that goes in hand with the reputation he's built over the past year as a guy that, again, is going to get those calls a lot because he knows exactly what he needs to do in order to get them. So, yeah, that's been a huge aspect of Brunson's game. If he had half of what he currently has in regards to that talent alone, he would not be even close to the same player, in my opinion. Like, that's a huge factor in his game, and it cannot be understated because he deserves all the success that he has had to this point. It goes beyond, especially with him being a defensive liability plenty at times. This is how he makes up for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that also when like it comes to drawing fouls, him getting those charges, like sacrificing it, like on the defensive end, he leads the NBA in offensive fouls,
right?
Drawn, right? So like when the defender is coming at him, he's not afraid to plant his feet and take a hit and get that offensive foul going towards the Knicks' way. So not only does he draw fouls on the offensive end, but on the defensive end, he makes up for it there. And I also think that he just is so relentless, is a word I like to use with Brunson, where he just feels like he's going 110% every single time. His efforts through the roof. And like when he's driving to the paint, and he just has that footwork. And like one of the plays last night, for example, he gets into the paint, he pivots his foot back, he goes back towards the rim, goes up and one, count it. And you just like feel his energy. Like he is doing everything he can possibly do to win these basketball games for the Knicks. And that's so awesome because like he's wearing his heart in his sleeve, and Knicks fans have been waiting for a franchise player like that to just kind of like embody grit, embody the city, and it's Brunson. He also has a comedic relief to him where like his relationships with Josh Hart is comedy and Dante's comedy. Yeah. Like they just have a cool dynamic here. And then, speaking of Randle real quick, I think that Julius Randle is having a phenomenal season, but the thing with him is, it kind of came to the surface of, yes, we need Brunson with Randle, and that's obvious. Yeah. I feel like without Brunson, we all know this is an issue here, but Julius Randle has really, I feel like, got so comfortable with Jalen Brunson in their second season together of them being a dynamic duo. And then they both had 30 piece on Wednesday night against Houston. Like let's not just be like, yeah, 30, like both from the 30, like it's no big deal. It's sick. I mean, you know how rare it is to have two players on a team drop 30 points in the same game multiple times in a season. Like the Knicks have a top 5 duo, and it's Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. So I'm really excited about it.
As that duo. Can't be one or the other. It has to be the pairing,
It's the pairing, said, and then they're one other player away. They're one piece away. We've been saying it forever. And of course, Hartenstein is that dog, and OG is that silent killer, it feels like. And they're just that one wing away to being a legit contender. And that's where my last segment I want to have on this show right here, Tyler, is who is that player? Are they going to go after the star? Are they going to get DeMar? Are they going to get Murray? Are they going to get Donovan, which I don't see happening right now personally? Or are they going to try to get that star in the offseason and for now supplement the bench, get a Brogdon, get a Burks, one of those players? Like, where's your gut at with that?
Yeah, I think it goes a little bit in hand with how expensive these 6-man options are going to be, right? Like if it looks like that these guys are going to come at a premium, some of them, we know they've been connected to Bruce Brown. We know they've been connected to Jordan Clarkson. Who am I missing? I know there's a multiple others too. Burks, of course, Rozier, who would of course be the 6-man for the Knicks more than likely. Brogdon, like what is their current trade value? Because if it's to a magnitude where you have to give up, say, multiple firsts and someone is asking for Grimes or whatever, and that's like a universal thing, which I doubt, but if it is, then I think you need to take a step back and reevaluate, and if that's the case, then you might as well go all in on a DeJounte Murray or DeMar DeRozan. Like, could you imagine DeMar DeRozan? Like, I think him in the starting 5, there could be some almost butting of heads with him and Brunson, but could you imagine if DeMar DeRozan came off the bench? Like,
I don't know if he would do that.
I don't know if he would do that either, but he's not getting any younger.
I know.
I'd
love that. He come on here and be the closer. I mean, he came to the Garden, had a great day, little tryout, if you will, for New York.
Right.
But I feel like if DeMar came to the Knicks, he'd probably have to start.
Right. You're probably pushing Dante to the bench. I understand that. But
it sounds great to me. I'm just saying DeMar's ego.
The depth would be through the roof then if that was the case.
But I feel like it would be like Melo, like when Carmelo Anthony was starting to come off the bench, and even like Westbrook. It's like, you're at the back end of your career. You got to accept the bench role. And like sometimes their egos getting involved. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm DeMar DeRozan. What do you mean? I'm Carmelo Anthony. Like I'm Russell Westbrook. It takes a little bit for those players at that back end of their careers to kind of accept that bench role. So if they do land him, you never know.
Let me ask you this then, and then we'll wrap up the show. Not only because we're tight on time, but you boys got to use the bathroom real bad. And I'm going to be completely blunt with that because the last show we did, as soon as we ended, Richie said to me, he's like, I got to use the bathroom really bad. I'm like, so do I. I'm like, it's the morning coffee, whatever it may be. But final question for you, Richie, before we get out of here. Out of the following players, in DeMar DeRozan, DeJounte Murray, Bruce Brown, Malcolm Brogdon, Jordan Clarkson, Terry Rozier, or Alec Burks, which one do you foresee coming to the Knicks? If you had to make a prediction.
So hard to predict, man.
It's so hard to pick.
I mean, you're talking about crapshoot.
I feel fairly confident in mine. So what's yours?
I I think that DeJounte Murray is going to fall through. I think the price is going to be too high.
Okay.
I think Atlanta is looking for a lot, and I don't think the Knicks are willing to sacrifice their assets for Murray. I think they're going to hold on to their assets and use those assets for this summer. But I do think they're still going to get a trade done for a bench help. I think it's going to be a lesser name. I think it's going to be a name that's not going to be super exciting. I think it could be a Bruce Brown. I think Bruce Brown has been linked to the Knicks for a while, and I also think it could be an Alec Burks or a Brogdon. I think that's the tier that I'm treading towards. I don't think it's going to be DeMar. I don't think it's going to be Donovan. I don't think it could be Murray. It can be, but I'm just predicting it here. I think any of those names you mentioned is a legit possibility, but my mind is going to be more towards the bench help and keeping the starting five the way it is. Maybe even keeping Grimes if possible, but don't really know if that's going to happen based off the reports.
If you're not trading for a DeJounte Murray or DeMar DeRozan type, Grimes should not be dealt. I feel very confident in saying that. Like, there's absolutely no reason. Even if his trade stock hurts a little bit for the rest of the year because, say, Tibbs doesn't love him and doesn't give him a whole lot of playing time, I just don't foresee how potentially trading Grimes for, like, for example, like multiple seconds or something, it's going to hurt this team. I just do not like that whatsoever. I know Grimes is going to break out, and
don't trade Grimes if it's not for a freaking star.
And I want them to figure it out in house. So for me, my prediction, I think the Knicks are going to get Malcolm Brogdon.
Okay, I like it. Malcolm Brogdon, not trading away Grimes, just picks and Fournier. I would absolutely love that. Boost up the bench. And let's go to the finals. Okay, let's relax. No, I'm not. Let's not relax. We're going all the way. All right, Knicks fans, thank you so much for tuning into another Knicks Media Show. Always a pleasure to have my man Tyler from Wardy NYM joining Knicks Media to chop it up about these New York Knicks. Big game tomorrow night. I'll be there in attendance. If any Knicks fans are going to be there,
brother.
I'm excited for that. It's going to be wild. Knicks fans, if you're going to be there, hit me up. I'd love to meet you guys at the Garden. It's going to be a lot of fun. Going to be in the city all day. Going to watch the Ravens Texans game at a bar beforehand.
Texans, baby!
So
let's go.
Hey, man, we shall see. Appreciate you guys. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel on your way out, and check out Wardy NYM. That link is down below in the description. If you are a Mets fan or an overall baseball fan, definitely go check out what Wardy's got cooking up. That's going to wrap up this show. We'll catch you guys later. Peace out, everybody.
Peace, guys.